The controller market is moving at incredibly rapid pace, and in the last 6 months, so much has happened. Now, I've talked about a lot of options that have a great balance between value and features, and I always wonder what happens when a company that offers the most value for the most feature goes completely wild and release the absolute best that they can. Well, for GameSir, it seems that it's this controller, the Tarantula Pro, and it is amazing. Hi, I'm Clef, and you're watching Game Tech Talk. Before going any further, this product has been sent for review. All opinions are my own, and they get to see the video at the same time as everybody else. You might have heard about it when it was released around, was it Gamescom? And it was called the Nine-Tailed Fox. It's been released at least for the international market as the Tarantula Pro. I've been working with it for about the last month, so I had a lot of time to really understand all the intricacies of this controller and how awesome that it is. Let's look at what was in the box. Now, you do have two variants of this controller that is on market. You have the Tarantula Pro, which comes of course with the controller, manual, cable, all that stuff, but also with a dock. And we'll go over the dock in a minute, but if ever you are undecisive between the two, I would strongly recommend that you go with the version that includes the dock. More on that in a second. Branded but not braided, just normal cable, the manual, and then you had the usual GameSir sticker as well as their thank you brochure. So last I checked, the Tarantula appeared on their Xbox controller on their website. And just for the record, this does not support Series S and Series X controller. I did try it on the PS5, and much like the GameSir Galileo G8 Plus, it does work on the PS5 and PS4, but just for a minute or two. After that, it disconnects and it doesn't work. This is really a PC and mobile and Switch controller. There was also a dongle. I'm really working hard with this word, which can be used for the Xbox mode wireless. You have the symmetrical design, very easy to feel right at home if you are accustomed to the DualShock 4 controller and the DualSense. It definitely has more of the DNA of the DualShock 4 D-pad, a very clicky and responsive with short travel kind of tactile D-pad. We have Hall Effect TMR sticks, which have great benefits over Hall Effect. We'll get into that a little later. We have membrane face buttons, which they have a nifty little trick, which we'll show you in a second. Tactile shoulder buttons, analog triggers. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 user mappable buttons. This is crazy. You have a membrane style home button in the middle. Here's your select start and your capture button. You also have hair trigger. So if you want short travel, and these are not software corrected distance trigger, these are proper buttons hair triggers. So that's awesome. You also have the latch mechanism for the back paddles, which is something that we also see on the G7 SE controllers. So if you undo these, you can click the buttons, but if you latch them, they can no longer be clicked, and it kind of reduced their heights a little bit. So it feels as if it's really merged with the shell. Like you can, if you search for it, you can feel it, but it does do a great job at making you believe that there are no buttons there. And then of course you have the M button, which will be used for a bunch of shortcuts like changing your layout, activating software hair trigger, because you do have software hair trigger if you want, activating turbo, all these different types of things. Now you do have the 4 pogo pins because the dock can charge your controller as it is docked. Textured grips, awesome look. And then you might have realized that this is all about the nifty little system, which I'll show you very shortly. Oh, and at the bottom you have a pairing button, USB-C. Now, one thing which not every cable will necessarily fit, because if you have a cable where the connector is too wide, too large, it's not gonna fit. And when it comes to the dock, it's very simple, very minimalistic design with acrylic here, branded GameSir at the bottom. In the dark, it makes it seem as if your controller is floating in the air. Very nice. It just installs itself like so. That's what it looks like. And of course, it is plugged by USB-C, but you can also plug the dongle here, so it can serve as your antenna. And one thing that is also very nice, let me just go ahead and plug it for you guys. The light of the dock, because the dock also has RGB, it will match the lighting of the controller as it is docked. I do want to take a moment to just let it sink in. $80 for this much controller, and there's a lot that I still haven't talked about, is absolutely crazy. It's wild that they pack so much controller in $80. And that's what I'm saying. Like, GameSir did not just enter an elite market, because they have, don't get me wrong, GameSir have great controllers, but they didn't really have an elite controller. And by elite, I mean like the Apex 4 or the DualSense Edge or the Xbox Elite, you know, something that is really extremely feature rich and extremely versatile in the features that it provides. GameSir did not really have that controller on market, but with this one, they're not just opening the door and say, hi, we're here. They're kicking through the door and bringing this crazy controller to market. You see, I'm sorry, the excitement got up. If it's not your first video, you might know by now that this happens from time to time. And yes, this is this controller. So let's talk about what makes it so great right after talking about today's sponsor, Ugreen. Ugreen equips you with reliable and quality-driven accessories to power your electronics at competitive prices. With a wide selection of cables ranging from USB-Cs, HDMIs, audio, and much more, and through their new Uno product line, they're making sure for reliable to also be cute and functional. Meet the 100-watt Uno charger block. This little robot will power up to 4 devices at once using one of the 3 USB-Cs or 1 USB-A. It can charge your more power-hungry devices like laptops, phones, tablets, and handheld PCs, all while bringing a bit of extra joy in your life. It offers 8 different levels of shortage safety protection. This little friend is more than just cute, it's a guardian for your electronics. It's a whole family of new products. Check out this Uno Qi 2 wireless charger. It'll charge the iPhone from the 12th series all the way up to the newest 16. Charge your AirPods and use the extra USB-C to charge your Apple Watch and much more, all while keeping you updated on the status of your devices and keeping them secure thanks to extremely powerful and reliable magnets. It's not just fun and intelligent, it's also versatile by propping up your phone to use as a viewing stand while enjoying your delicious coffee on a Sunday morning. Activate your curiosity and power up in a flash with Ugreen. Links in the description. Before being powered, this is what this controller looks like. When you power it, you'll notice that a lot is happening. First, you have a lot of RGB that comes up. You have the strip here, which is addressable. You also have the one around the actual GameSir logo, and that one will also serve to tell you about some shortcuts, much like some other GameSir controllers on the market. You may notice that this is the PlayStation color layout, which that was something I made. Each of the face button have addressable RGB. So if you wanted to make it all green, all red, all yellow, you can. If you want to make it all white, you can. If you want to have the PlayStation color layout to have this element that reminds you of what button is which, you can do that just as I did. But it doesn't stop there. I mentioned the M button, and that M button will let you do shortcuts on the controller, and one of them is to change the layout, which once again is very common in GameSir controllers. Here in the test input menu, you'll notice that if I push A, it's gonna do A. So basically it's gonna match the layout, but that's not the layout of the Nintendo controller. So what you can do is you can hold the M button in the back while holding the bottommost button while you are connected to a device. So that'll work whether you're on PC, whether you're on Switch, or your Android, iOS, it doesn't matter. The shortcut will work as long as the controller is connected to a device. So as I hold them both, this happens. And now all of a sudden, the layout has changed, and now the value also matched the position where they're at. Now, I feel like this is a question that might come. Can you put the B, say, to the left or to the top? You cannot, because that little gear that you see here, it's turning some kind of wheel and it's moving the letters in place where they can be. So you really can choose between one or the other layout. You cannot make any custom random pattern. You do have one or two, which are the two common most. As we mentioned, the M button can be used for another few couple of things. You also have a software hair corrected trigger. Maybe you like the feeling of the analog, but you don't want that graduality that an analog stick usually have. So what you can do is hold the mode button in the back and hold your trigger. So we'll do it RT. And that blinking lets me know that the hair trigger is now activated. Notice that every time that I push it, the light faints, and if I do the other one, it doesn't. That means that the software hair trigger is activated, but if I wanted a physical hair trigger, I can just move the switch right here, and I now have an actual button which I can show you works just fine. The other features, because we're far from being done with this one, it also supports Amiibo, so you can just drop it where the GameSir font is. And there you have it. And then we were talking about these extra buttons. So for example, here it's not mapped to anything. So now what I want to do is hold M while holding one of the mapping buttons that I want to do. So I'm going to hold these two. Your controller will flash. That means it's ready to receive input. So let's just do B, hit it once, and it recorded. So now whenever I do B, so that's how you would remap without using the software, but there is a software. We'll get back to that very shortly. Now you can also do macros. So if I hold M and I'm going to do exactly the same button, it's going to flash, letting me know that it's ready for inputs. And I'm going to do the all 4 buttons and I'm going to tap it. And now whenever I type it, you'll notice that it does the 4 buttons. Now you can also do turbo. If you hold M and you push a button, one of the main buttons just once, like so, that lets me know that turbo is activated. So if I hold the key, it does turbo. If I do it again, it flashes faster. That means that it does a faster turbo. If I do it again, an even faster turbo. That one is really the fastest there is. And then one last time means that the function has been removed altogether. Another feature that it has is HD rumble and gyro. So let's go ahead and test that out. So here I am in Mario Odyssey. And as you can, oh, I probably shouldn't do Mario, should I? Yeah. So here I am in Monkey Ball. And of course, gyro is activated as well as rumble. And let me tell you, everything works great. In fact, I've had this controller for about a month, so I really had a lot of time to test it. I've completely played to finish Echoes of Wisdom using this controller. It works amazing. Now, it is the symmetrical pattern, right? So not everyone is necessarily akin to that pattern. Personally, I've learned to adapt to both of them, so I don't mind it. I do favor the asymmetrical, specifically for aiming, but it's still something I can do with this controller. I played Destiny for I don't know how long on consoles, so definitely feasible for me as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's something that, you know, not necessarily everyone is excited about. Another thing that I can show you is I've mentioned that there are 3 buttons here, right? For example, if I push right now, nothing happens. So we can remap all this. So I'm going to do the mode button in the back while hitting this one. And I'm going to do A, push it again. So this is now A. So now I'm going to do the same with this one. And I'll do bottom arrow and I'll push it again. Now this is bottom arrow, this is A. And then let's do, let's say, right click with this one. And now this is right click. So I have 3 buttons here. Isn't that crazy? Now, chances are you might think, well, this is far too many buttons than I could ever need. And I would tend to agree with you. But the thing that's interesting is I don't think I've ever seen a controller this clever when it comes down to its design. And I guess let's call this section of this video ergonomics. And I really want to take a moment to show you what I mean. Logically speaking, that's the way that you're going to hold the controller, right? Holding it just like this. And most people are going to play exactly that way. But as we know, there are other styles of holding your controllers. For example, the claw method, which looks something more like this. And what's interesting with this controller is it's so adaptable to holding methods that we know, holding methods that we don't know as much, and probably holding methods that do not even exist. This control, and that's what's crazy with it. This controller has the potential to create a whole new landscape of gamers and the way that they hold their controllers. And here's the reason why. By having your thumb on your face buttons, if you push just a little further, you gain access to 2 more buttons. You can do the same with your D-pad. You can do the claw. You can even do a claw like this. Like, the possibilities of the way to hold this controller are completely crazy. And same goes for the back paddles. I mean, technically, you could play like this if you wanted, while still having fingers on your back paddle. So when, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but when I think Tarantula, and I start to think of the way that I could use my fingers with this controller, it starts to make sense. You literally could play with 8 fingers, 8 legs of a spider, 8 fingers on this controller to control it in so many different unique ways. and you would never sacrifice a button in doing so, which is something extremely rare. You don't see that a whole lot in controllers. Your options here are beyond anything else that we've ever seen before, because you can have so many different ways to hold it. It's shockingly good. And not only that, if you're not familiar with this feature, GameSir and their software has a feature that lets you swap the left stick and right stick. So if you wanted to play like this without ever touching your sticks, you could. And talking about software, let's have a look at what you can do with the software. As is customary, we'll fly through the software. So when clicking on the Tarantula, you can test your inputs. You can change the layout of your button, which will also change the layout on the controller, and you can also remap your 9 user mappable buttons. You can also address the dead zone and the curvature of your sticks, as well as some other features like the D-pad and left stick swapping. You can address your vibration in the software as well. You can also address the dead zone and activate the software hair trigger in that menu. You can also restore the default on each of these menus, by the way. You can address the RGB band that you have around the GameSir font on your controller. There's different modes. Radar will pulse when you push the keys. And this is where you can also change the colors for your buttons for the Switch and Xbox layout. And then you have a bunch of other stuff, restart default, connection, etc., etc. Now, one thing that I find is a bit unfortunate is right now you don't have any software support on PC. There is a software that can be used only to upgrade the controller. It doesn't let you modify any of its settings, and that software is only available in Chinese. It is on the Windows Store. Right now, you will have to rely on your Android and iOS devices. But much like it is the case with the GameSir Galileo G8 Plus, like the Easy SMX M15, like the Absolute S9, this controller has a unique Bluetooth antenna specifically to address your settings, which means that you can be playing on your computer wired and still use your phone as you're gaming to make quick adjustments on the fly. So, you know, that's a pro, though I find not having a proper PC software to be a con. Hopefully that's something that will get addressed over time. We'll see. Let's talk about the sticks. Now, by the way, if you are new, do consider subscribing. I do a lot of videos about controllers and gaming peripherals in general, and take it from the comment section. I'm sure they'll have a lot of great things to say about me, right? ALPS sticks, which is what we had for pretty much the last 2 decades. Recently, Hall Effect Goalie Kit brought them back to life by introducing them in their KK2 Pro controller about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and that completely took the market by storm. And that was probably one of the things that completely pushed the custom controller manufacturing forward. As I'm sure many of you know already, it uses magnets to determine the position of your sticks, so it has a lot less risk of drift, less needs for dead zones, and it is overall more precise. However, there's something that needs to be taken into consideration when talking about Hall Effect, which is the fact that the graduality from a linear point of view aspect of your sticks are not like ALPS, meaning that if you push consistently at exactly the same distance on your sticks, on ALPS, your curve of your stick will ramp up in very linear fashion, meaning that you can expect the same graduality to be consistent throughout the entire radius of your stick. Hall Effect, not so much. It feels like it is at the usually about the midpoint of your sticks, but once you get past the midpoint, it changes. So it's very common when playing with Hall Effects that you're trying to move just a little bit and then you push a little too far and suddenly your character moves way faster than you expected it to be. And that's due to the linearity of Hall Effect enters TMR. And this is what makes TMR so amazing. Technically, it uses magnets, the exact same thing. But in terms of the triangulation of the magnet being read by the sensor, what you get is a very linear approach, a very linear growth to your sticks. Think of it this way. You know cell phone towers? How they triangulate your cell phone and they can know ballpark where your cell phone is? Well, imagine Hall Effect and TMR being exactly the same thing, but TMR has way more power, enabling your sensor to be able to pinpoint exactly where you are with a much higher degree of fidelity. This whole explanation to let you know that this uses TMR, right? This is what we have in here. If you've seen my Video 4 Pro review, I talked about the bit of the sensor. So Basically, higher the bits, higher the resolution, more stop points that you have on your sticks. So the granularity of your sticks are increased, are more efficient, and that allows you, the player, to be more precise with your sticks, not having to move as much to get your camera or your character to move accordingly. These have 12-bit sticks, exactly like the Vader 4 Pro. From just a technical standpoint, you know, there are other controllers, one I reviewed, that have very amazing sticks, and you know, this is not what this video is about, but that's not to say that it's the only great sticks in the world. But you can rest assured with no hesitations that what you have is, in this controller, is chef's kiss. You have TMR 12-bit sticks with a phenomenal curve, which means that the performance of these sticks are just awesome. They're extremely, extremely good. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and test these sticks in Aim Labs. And by the way, we'll talk performance, but when you hold mode and you hold the stick, so for example, now you can see the perfect circle, so I'm gonna hold mode and the stick. It's gonna vibrate. And now I can have the raw input and get past the circle. So that's something, if you prefer the square, which is usually my case, it's something you can do as well. $28,000. Yeah, those sticks are crazy. Those sticks are absolutely crazy, crazy, crazy. Believe me. $28,000 again. Yeah, those sticks are really something else. Not gonna lie, they're really, really good. TMR makes it that it's such a consistent, smooth progression, and same goes with the 12-bit. You really feel the difference with these sticks. It's quite impressive. Let's go ahead and test Street Fighter. And to do that test, I'm actually gonna go back to the Nintendo Switch, which, by the way, the controller locks the settings. So if you are playing on your Switch and then you're moving to your PC and then you go back to your Switch, you're not gonna lose your settings in terms of the connection and everything. You just have to get back to it. It can power up the Switch. It does have steep corners, but they're brushed off just enough that it's easy to glide. There is no center pivot, by the way, no pivot at all on this controller. All right, it works better than I thought, but the inputs, honestly, I'm pleasantly surprised. Usually I don't seem to have this efficient performance when using GameSir controllers, but whenever I'm trying to hit the diagonals, like, you know, usually on a controller you're trying to jump, you're gonna hit that corner to try to jump. It doesn't work so well with this one. Like I really have to push my movement forward to make the move that I'm trying to make. But as far as the commands, that works fine. Yeah, no, that definitely works fine. That's not a problem at all. Wow. I'm almost wondering if they have something over their tactile, because it's almost as if maybe that's why they call it tactile micro switch. I don't get the feeling of a micro switch, but I get the feeling as if there's a membrane over the tactile button, if that makes sense. I wonder. I believe it's the Khaled. They advertise that they have cushion tactile buttons. I think it's the same technology that they're using on their D-pad. And it does have a feel that feels like micro switches, but it's not. Very interesting. Okay, that D-pad is better than I thought. It definitely is. Just a little hard for diagonals, really. That's the only thing. Like, it might actually be better for fighters, not as good for platformers, actually. Like, if it's a platformer where you have to use your up arrow to jump a lot, that might be problematic. But for fighters, this is, yeah, that is the best D-pad out of a GameSir controller for fighters that I've seen. I would still give it an A- because it's not the greatest at everything like I've seen other D-pads do, but it's extremely well balanced for fighters and decent for platformers. We're almost done, guys. Let's talk performance. Of course, I benched it as usual. Here you have the stick resolution, amazing steps, pretty much the best I've seen in the market. I don't think there is lower than that at this point in time. So phenomenal performance when it comes to the sticks. Now, when it comes to wired, you will achieve that 1000 hertz. GameSir is almost always consistently hitting at 100% rate the numbers that they put out, which is impressive. And no, we're not at a 100% when it comes to the 1000 hertz pulling rate, but this is considerably higher than most controllers I've benched in the last year. So to me, that tells me that, you know, this is not overclocked. They're not pushing the components to the point that there is jitter, to the point that it's struggling to match that performance metric that they say they have. So to me, that wire performance is amazing. So let's go over the price. You can get the controller and dock for $79.99, but I didn't mention earlier, you can also get the controller only for $69.99, which again completely blows my mind that you have this much controller for this price. There are so many people in my comments that ask for symmetrical controllers. Guys, let me tell you, if you are one of those that prefer symmetrical sticks, and you've been waiting for the longest time for a controller that follows the pattern that you're looking for. And let's be honest, the market does not cater to your needs. The market leaves you dry when it comes to people that love symmetrical sticks. Get this. Don't even think twice. Go on Amazon right now, type it, go on my links, even better, please consider using my links. Click on that thing, it's affiliate. I do make a small kickback if you do. And buy this thing before it sells out, because man, is it ever so good. And even if you are not a symmetrical kind of player, I would still urge you to buy it because it's so awesome. Don't get me wrong, at first I was like, I hate this. And eventually I got used to it. You have gyro here that can assist you with your sticks if you're having a little struggle in terms of aiming. You have so many things that you can do with this controller. It is so complete. It is so rich. You have a layout that you can adjust on the fly. I mean, how cool is this thing? You can address your RGBs to make a layout like the one that I have, which works awesome for me. I love this layout. You know, the PlayStation colors with the Xbox lettering, and then you have a dock that can serve as an antenna that makes it look like your controller is floating at night. How can we go from here? You know, I see a controller like this and I'm like, okay, what is the next step? Right? And don't get me wrong, I cover a lot of controllers, and one that is right in my field of view right now that I've talked about very recently that you know I love and adore, and it's a great controller, and it's also 4 times the price. And I'm not saying that this one wins on every aspect over the other one, but in terms of features, I mean, this probably beats 99% of the controllers on the market. I mean, it's crazy what you can do with this controller, and every time I feel like I'm having the same conversation, and I'm thinking, okay, where do we go from here? And something like that comes, and I'm like, wow. And I have other controllers to talk about. They're also wow for different reasons, but yeah, this one means business, guys. It's a real one. Anyways, I hope as always that this was informative. Please consider hitting a like, consider hitting the subscribe if you've enjoyed this video, and as always, I'll see you on the next one. Peace.